make sure I'm live on Instagram. So good afternoon, or good evening actually, in London. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening if you are joining me on another part of the planet that isn't in the evening. So my name is June Allen. I'm a racial trauma therapist and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. Hello Michelle. I hope you're all doing okay. I hope that you're having a really good weekend so far. It's been a bit mixed here in London. The sun has been out, but we've had lots of rainstorm as well, so it's been a bit weird. So anyway, today, I can't believe we're nearly at the end of the 30 days. It just feels really... Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey doing these 30-day live streams. So for those of you that don't know about the 30-day live streams, on the 1st of June, it was my 8-year anniversary in business, and on the 2nd of June, it was my 13-year anniversary in recovery. So I decided that I was going to do... I decided that I was going to do 30 live streams in 30 days, okay, just to talk about insights, tools that I'd learned, people asking questions about different things about my business, showing a little bit, talking a little bit about some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and just basically sharing what's been on my heart. And it's been a really good journey, and I've really appreciated people sending in questions and stuff like that. It's been really, really good. So what I wanted to do, so today is day 29, and I wanted to use today to just share about borrowed hope, because this is probably one of the things that's kept me going. Okay, it's really been one of the things. So Michelle, she's saying, I'm going to miss the live streams. It's the highlight of my day. Oh, bless you. But you know what? I've actually made the decision that I'm actually going to do more. I'm actually going to do more live streams. I know before I started doing these 30 live streams in 30 days, I used to do one a week. Okay, I used to do one a week. I might do the odd, micro video here and there, but I used to do one a week. But I've decided that I am actually going to start doing more, because I've got so much out of it, and it's actually been really nice getting to know everybody. And loads of people have been emailing in about their struggles and what's been going on. And it's been good hearing from you as well, Michelle, just kind of hearing your process and the types of things that you want me to talk about and stuff. So that's been really, really good for me. So not just for me, but in terms of me being able to serve. So I am going to definitely do more live streams. I think doing one a week is okay, but I think what I've learned from doing this is that I'm gonna that people do want more from me. So I'm going to talk in more detail tomorrow about what I've learned from doing these live streams, and what I'm going to sort of commit to going forward in terms of the live stream, because I feel like I could I feel like more is needed, and so I'm definitely going to do more. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's been good for me to understand also what you need as well from me. That's been really, really good. So today I really wanted to share actually, before I even get into the content, let me just share as well that I've got my half-day retreat, okay, The Art of Receiving. For those of you that haven't got your tickets already, The Art of Receiving is happening on the 15th of July, okay. It's a half-day retreat, 2 workshops. One is going to be about understanding your relationship to receiving, and we're going to be talking about the blocks that you might have around receiving, all of that kind of stuff. And then in the afternoon, we're going to be doing a workshop that is specifically around money and receiving. So we'll be doing some immersive exercises. There'll be group sharing, and also because it's been my anniversary as well, my business anniversary, you'll be able to hear from some of the women who have been working with me for quite some time. I know there's some people that have already worked with me as well. I know Michelle, we've obviously, we've hung out and stuff before. So it'd just be really good to hear from some of the ladies that have been with me for quite a long time doing this work. So if you've been thinking about working with me for a while and you want a bit, you want a bit of a taster as to what it means or what other people have got out of working with me, both doing the financial therapy and doing other self-care stuff, other self-love stuff, then join us on the 15th of July. Today, this weekend only, I'm doing a 2-for-1 offer. Okay, I'm doing a 2-for-1 offer this weekend. So, if you've got a couple of friends or whatever that you think, or a friend or so that you think might be interested in just joining us for the event on the 15th, then, join us for the 2-for-1. The 2-for-1 is only going to be happening this weekend. It runs out Sunday at midnight. Okay, so click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Okay, so let's now dive into today's content. So the reason why I wanted to talk about borrowed hope is because there have been many times, okay, throughout this process where I've just thought, you know what, I can't be asked with doing this healing stuff. I don't want to get a therapy. I don't want to do all this digging. It's too painful. It takes too long. It's overwhelming. There were so many this work is not easy. Okay, this work is not easy, and I tell people that all the time. It's difficult. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't change anything. Because the amount of confidence that I've gained, it's helped me be a better parent. It's helped me be a better person generally. It's changed every single area of my life doing this work. But there have been times where I've just thought, I can't be asked to do this anymore. So I wanted to share the concept of borrowed hope because it just kind of reinforces the whole idea that you can't do this work by yourself. As much as I tried to do it through reading books, we're listening to podcasts and all of that stuff, and all of that stuff is great. But when it comes down to it, I needed to go to a therapist. Okay, and I needed to do individual work with somebody else, and I also needed to do group work. I needed to do both. There has to be community, and I needed both one-on-one, and I needed community. Because they've got different outcomes. They do different things, and there are things that I wasn't ready to share in group that I was able to share with my therapist or with my recovery sponsor. Yeah, I was able to do those things one-to-one, and that was a lot easier for me. And the more I kind of learn how to share stuff with in therapy and in one-to-one, I found it easier to share it in group. And sometimes it worked the other way around. Sometimes I would go to a group and I would hear somebody share something, and I'd be like, oh my god, I feel like that. I thought it was just me that felt like that. And that actually helped me to connect at group level. So I just wanted to really get into that a little bit more. So first of all, let's kind of define what hope is. Okay, let's define what hope is. So I did a little bit of research and stuff before I jumped on to do this live stream. So hope is an expectation and a desire for a favourable outcome. Okay, hope is an expectation and a desire for a favourable outcome. Okay, it's also a belief that things will improve or turn out well. Okay, it's a belief that things will improve or turn out well. All right. It also provides us with a sense of purpose, motivation, resilience, and how to navigate challenges. It gives us kind of fuel to be able to navigate the challenges, because we've got that hope, we've got that belief, we've got that motivation to go, do you know what? Even though these things might feel rubbish at the moment, I can do this. Okay, I can do this. I can pursue my dreams. I can pursue my aspirations. I can pursue my desires, all that kind of stuff, because I have hope that things will be okay. Okay, I have hope that things will be okay. Now, for us as black women, okay, hope is important for us as black women because of the intersection of all the different types of oppression that we experience. All right, being black and being a woman, living inside systems. We've got capitalism, we've got, I list them all the time in these live streams. We've got racism, we've got patriarchy, we've got misogyny, we've got sexism, we've got capitalism, we've got class, we've got, you name it. We can go down the list, okay, of the different types of oppression, and depending on what you've got going on, if you're not a straight person, if you're gay or lesbian, if you're not, non-binary, all that kind, then, the list of oppressions can be added to that list. Okay, so hope is important for our psychological well-being. Okay, we need to be able to feel optimistic and hopeful and positive and have that self-belief and self-confidence that even with all of those oppressions and stuff going on, that we still believe that we can achieve things. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's hard to feel hope. Sometimes it's hard to feel optimistic. Sometimes it's hard to be positive when we're constantly being surrounded and living inside systems, okay, that don't support us, that don't care about us, that treat us like cattle. You know, all of that stuff is not, you know, it's not a recipe for good self-esteem. It's not a recipe for good self-esteem. So it's important for us to be able to find spaces to be able to help us so that we can borrow hope. And this is, like I said, this is something that I've used, you know, in the past a lot, especially when I first started doing this work. Oh my God, when I first started doing this work and the grief kicked in and the rock bottom kicked in, and, you know, I started coming out of the numbness. You know, I numbed myself for years. I couldn't feel anything for years because that was the way that I coped with stuff. That's how I protected myself. But when I started to experience my feelings, you know, it oh my God, it was really hard. It was really hard, and things felt worse for quite a while before things started to get better. Because I had to, you know, all of the old stuff that I'd kind of been hiding from that was buried, it all started coming up to the surface. You know, one of the phrases that they do say in recovery is that, you know, one of the good things about being in recovery is that you get your feelings back. And also one of the shit things about being in recovery is that you get your feelings back. So it's, you know, because you're starting to experience yourself as a human being in a much different way, and you start to come out of denial. You start to come out of denial about, you know, all of the things that you weren't ready to face, that you weren't ready to take responsibility for. All of the realities and the truths about those things start to come up. You know, if you're one of these people that fantasizes a lot about stuff, your fantasy about relationships, your fantasy about, you know, about your situation, your fantasy about who you are as a black person, or the fantasy about what it means to be a black person living under the system, you know, of oppression. All of these are all coping mechanisms that we've used to deal with the suffering and the pain that's caused from you know, living in a black body. You know, and I was doing all of those things. That was the way that I coped. But when I started telling the truth about these things, and started telling the truth about the stuff that was going on in my family, and how I found it struggled in relationships, all of that sort of stuff, when all of that stuff starts, when I came out of denial and started really being honest about all of that, you know, I was depressed. You know, I was in a lot of emotional pain. And when I started doing the work that was linked to race and oppression and stuff like that, then I was in a lot of spiritual pain. Because I was like, what the hell is it? How am I going to deal with all of this? What am I supposed to do? What's next? Like, how am I going to find a way out of doing it? How am I going to survive with all of this? And so there were many times where, you know, I didn't want to continue. There were times where I was just like, I can't be asked. There were times like, you know, I just wanted to go back into denial. But the thing is about doing this work is that you can't go back. Once you start learning all of these things and start telling the truth and all the rest of it, you can't just go back into hiding. It's very difficult to do all of that, because once you know, you know. Once you know, you know. You can no longer lie to yourself. You can no longer lie to other people. You can't lie to your you know, you can't tolerate stuff that's going on in your family, all that sort of stuff. You can't tolerate certain things in relationships. You know, for me, I left a relationship that I was in. I knew I was going to be on my own with a child and all the rest of it, but I was not willing to tolerate what was going on in that relationship. And, you know, I asked him at the time, would he be willing to go to therapy? I was willing to go to therapy, but he wasn't. He wasn't willing, and I made that decision that was a boundary for me, because I knew the relationship was toxic and I didn't want to raise a child in that environment. So I made that decision. I was like, well, if you're not willing to, and it wasn't a threat, it wasn't sort of like an ultimatum. It was like, well, obviously that's your choice if you don't want to do therapy or whatever, but I can't continue doing this. Especially because we've got a child. And so I made a decision to leave, and actually it was the best decision I've ever made. because it changed my life, and it, you know, it meant that I was able to go into therapy. I was able to, you know, raise my child in a different way, and you know, it was very difficult because I was having to take a lot of risks. But the thing that kept me going, even though I was going through a really difficult time, was borrowed hope. Because when things got really, really bad, I could pick up the phone and I could talk to somebody else in recovery. When things felt really hopeless and I felt like I can't do this or whatever, I would go to a meeting. You know, I spent the first 2 years of my life in recovery. Okay, I would, well, not just recovery, I was actually going to therapy as well at the same time. But the first 4 years of doing that work, I was absolutely disciplined and relentless. I did as I was told. I took the suggestions of my sponsor. I worked the steps. I went to therapy. I saved my money and I went to my therapy. I spent with this time with the same. Actually, the first time I went to therapy, I kind of spent a few months with a few therapists here and there, just trying to feel out what was really working for me. But when I settled in, you know, and I settled in I found a great black male therapist, and I worked with him for 6 years. I stayed with him for 6 years because I was so committed to doing this work, and I allowed myself to, even when I felt shit, even when I felt awful, I thought, do you know what, if I can just get to a meeting, if I can just get to my therapist, then it just meant that I could just borrow hope from somebody else. Somebody else would be able to tell me that everything would be okay. I could listen to other people's stories. Okay, I could listen to other people's stories, and this is where the community part of it was so powerful for me, because when I felt like I can't do this, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I just don't know what I'm doing as a parent, I would have so many negative thoughts and feelings about what was going on in my life, and I just thought, I just don't know what the hell I'm doing. But as soon as I stepped foot in a meeting, in particular the group stuff, the community stuff, I would hear people sharing their stories. I would hear people sharing their struggles. I would hear other people that had been in recovery for years sharing their journey. And I just the miracles that I've heard people talk about, like, yeah, just how people change the relationship with their children, how they change the relationship with their families, how they change the relationship with their relationship, you know, they change their relationship to relationships, how they change their relationship with just in all areas of their lives, because they've made that commitment to just stay in therapy and stay committed to their path, stay committed to working the steps, and stay committed to doing service and giving back to others, you know. And what happens is when you are having a difficult time, the thing that always works when you go to these community spaces or when you go to therapy or whatever is that, especially if you're not used to it, because I didn't have a clue when I went in these spaces. I'm like, I don't know what boundaries are. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't got a clue how I'm going to do this. But what I do know is that I want what these people have. I hear these people talking like they've got more confidence. They know they seem to know what they're doing. They know how to deal with their challenges. They know how to deal with their stress. And I just thought, I want what they have. I want that. I want to feel confident about who I am. I want to learn how to deal with what it means to be in pain. I want to know what these people do. I want to know what tools they use to deal with suffering. I want to know what they do in terms of, you know, how do you deal with family members that have been abusive? How do you deal with relationships that you know, with partners that are abusive? How do you deal with all those people? What do they do? How do they manage? And I thought, if they can do it, you know, maybe there's a small % chance that I can do it. I didn't really always feel it at the time, but there was a tiny percentage, that tiny bit of hope that I would feel when I would go to a meeting or go to therapy, that I would think, do you know what, maybe I can do this. Why not me? I deserve to have some. I deserve to have some hope. I knew that I didn't want to continue the way that what I was doing, I knew that what I was doing was not working. I knew what I was doing was not working, and I could not continue the way that it was, because I knew that I wouldn't be here. I knew I wouldn't survive if I didn't do something about it. So just giving myself permission to sit in those spaces just allowed me to get some of that hope. That somehow some of that hope and some of that optimism and some of that positivity and that resilience would somehow, I would be able to absorb some of that just from being around other people. And sometimes I would sit in the rooms and I would just be I would feel so bad about myself, like I didn't always used to talk. It took me, I actually went to meetings, and I would sit in meetings for months before I felt the courage to say anything, to really say anything, like of any real depth. I would I remember the first meeting that I went to, and I did talk, but I just thought I couldn't really say a lot, because I just knew I wanted something different, but I just wasn't in that state yet where I felt safe enough to be vulnerable, to be really vulnerable. I hadn't been to enough meetings yet, but I would try every meeting. I would open my mouth and I would say a few sentences, just to connect and just to start to practice and start to build up my reps around what it means to do this work. Because I thought to myself, if I really want what these people have, then I'm going to have to start using the tools what they use. And one of those tools is to open my mouth and share my truth. One of those tools is for me to open my mouth and share my truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. No matter how uncomfortable it is. So sometimes I would just open my mouth and just connect with the meeting. But it took me a while to start sharing really honestly about what was going on, because I felt so ashamed. And after a period of time, I started enjoying it. It can shut me up after a while. I was like, actually, I quite like doing this. This is actually quite good. But even then, it still took me a long time to start sharing about my black. I would say it took me about 3-4 years before I really started to understand that, oh my God, I need to start sharing what it means to be a black person doing this work, because not a lot of people were really sharing about it. And I remember there was this other black woman who I used to see in the rooms quite a lot. And I remember I went up to her. We both went to a conference, actually. We went to a recovery conference, and it was a really good conference. And I remember going up to her afterwards, and I was saying to her, look, I really need somebody else to talk about this stuff around being black. And I don't need no one else talking about it in the rooms, but I need someone to talk to. And I just said, look, if you don't want to have these sorts of conversations, that's absolutely fine. Would you be willing, to get on the phone and for us to have a chat about this stuff? I don't know what I'm doing, but I just know that I need to start talking about it, because I'm in pain about it and I don't really understand what's going on. But I need another black person to be able to talk to about this stuff. And we would start talking about it, and that's how it started. That's how I started really talking more about racial sobriety and all the rest of it. And then I started sharing about it with other people, and that's how it started. And then so what happened as a result of that is that the more I shared about it, I started getting more confident, and I started sharing about it in meetings. And then I started realising, actually, these white people don't want to hear me talking about racism, because it triggers them. They don't want to hear me talking about it. People don't want to hear me talking about it on the phone. White people don't want to hear me talking about it. Even, like I said before in previous live stream that I did about this, white people started dropping like flies when I started talking about my recovery as a black woman. They didn't want to hear it. So that's when I realised that I needed to start having these conversations in people of colour only spaces. And that's when I started doing a lot of service, setting up meetings and all that sort of stuff, and started creating literature, questions and all of that sort of stuff for people to start to explore, what is racial sobriety and all of that sort of stuff. And I started talking about it and writing about it and creating spaces for people to start to have those conversations. This is back in 2014 to 2017, but 2014, something like that. way back in the day, I started having these sort of conversations, and then I started to see the relief that people started to feel when they started coming into these POC spaces, and just the identification and the reduced isolation and the feeling of community, and that, you know, the kind of the stress that would be reduced as a result of them being able to have honest conversations about how they felt about doing this stuff, about talking about it. And it's just, it's something that, it's also that feeling of, do you know what, there's always something that I could do. Now I'm around my people and people are sharing how they feel. It's like, oh my gosh, I started to feel more hope, because I was like, oh my gosh, no matter how bad things get, now I'm around my people. Even if I feel like crap, I can be around my people in these meetings. We're all trying to heal from this stuff. We're all trying to deal with what it means to be living under these systems of oppression, and I can do this. I can do this now that I've got a community of people, and I had a really good therapist, and I was like, do you know what? I can do this. I can do this. And here's the last thing that I'm going to share about this whole thing about borrowed hope that I think is really, really important, is about the ability to actually reclaim our ability to dream. Okay, to reclaim our ability to dream and start to have an imagination about what's possible for us. And this is something that came up in the session that I did on Thursday, my financial therapy group that I did on Thursday. And it was this whole idea about, you know, as black people, we've had our ability to dream and imagine and be hopeful. All of that has basically been stripped out of us. It's been taken away from us. The whole system of all the different systems of oppression, okay, have been so toxic. Whether you're talking about our ancestors that were enslaved on the plantations, or whether you're talking about the current situation where we're through social media or whatever, or whether it's through our whether it's internalized through our families and being played out. Our ability to dream and really think about what we desire and what we need, and imagining a life of abundance beyond survival and the bare minimum and breadcrumbs, is a very new concept for us. It's a very, very new concept for us. And this is something where being in community and hearing others talk about what's possible, and reclaiming that part of ourselves. And for me, that's probably been one of the most powerful things about being in community. That's been one of the most powerful things about being in community, is reclaiming my right to dream, reclaiming my right to desire having a life that's beyond survival. And it takes time. It takes time to actually learn and own that, and it's something that I still battle with sometimes. It's something that I still battle with sometimes, because the part of me that identifies with the oppressor, and again I'm talking about the parts work now, the part of me that identifies the oppressor, that internalizes all of the oppressive systems, is saying to me, you don't deserve abundance. Okay? You don't deserve to be hopeful. You are just a mule under the system, and that's all you're good for. And how dare you think you can dream anything else other than what you're supposed to do under the system? That part of me is going to keep reiterating that part, because that's how powerful the system is. But the difference is that I understand that part, and I know what that part is. But that part is not my truth. I understand that that's the system's role, trying to remind me, trying to keep me in my place, basically, trying to keep me small, trying to keep me in my place, trying to remind me that I ain't nothing but a black woman, and therefore I need to stop being, I need to stay where I am. I need to stay where I am. Hi Beverly, thanks for joining. I need to stay in my place and keep my mouth shut. And how dare I want to dream and have a life above what the system thinks that I deserve, which is nothing. Breadcrumbs. If I'm lucky. According to under the system, I should just be lucky that I got a breath. under the system, I should be lucky that, you know, that they're paying me so much less than everybody else. I should be lucky that I'm even on the bottom of the rung. I'm on the bottom of the ladder. I should be grateful under the system that I'm even at the bottom of the ladder at all. And I think that this is something that a lot of us really do need to revisit. And I know for me, sometimes I've felt afraid of even thinking that I deserve something above the bare minimum or above the breadcrumbs or whatever, because again, like I think I was sharing about this before, there's always that fear that it's going to be taken away. If I allow myself to be abundant, if I allow myself to receive, if I allow myself to dream, okay, if I have hope, okay, the system of oppression will find some way to slap that shit out of my mouth. Yeah, the system of oppression will find some way to slap that shit out of our mouths at some level, to put us back in our place. There'll be something that happens politically, something that, you know, there'll be something that happens that to remind us, you know, who we're supposed to be under the system. And I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, when you go into social media sometimes and you see all this abuse, see how people being abused and all that sort of, and I think that's why they don't care to censor any of that stuff. You will not see white people, okay, paraded on social media, especially when white people have been abused, you know, the way that we are abused, the way that, especially if we've been murdered and stuff like that, people being shot and people they're circulating all the videos. Tell me when you see white people when you see white people being paraded on social media doing that shit. You don't see it. You don't see. It's like modern day slaughtering. It's like modern day lynching is the word I'm looking for. You don't see these modern day lynchings happening to white people. Even if they do happen. Okay, even if they do happen, they don't show it on social media, and it's not shown like a friggin' movie like they do it with us. And the reason they do it to us is because a traumatized people is a people that can be controlled. Okay, a traumatized people are a people that can still be controlled. It's a way of reminding us that we need to be kept in our place. And that if you have any ideas about dreaming, about being abundant, about being confident, they're going to slap that hope out of your mouth. Okay? And this is the reason why community and being around others that are doing this work is so important. Because you need to be able to get borrowed hope from others when you're having a difficult time. When you're having a difficult time, you can be around other people. I think one of the things that I keep hearing from people, just from me doing these live streams, is that they feel hopeful. They feel hopeful. Because I'm sharing my story, I'm adding value, I'm sharing things to do when you're not feeling good about yourself, I'm sharing my experience, I'm sharing what the things that I do when I feel bad about myself. I'm sharing all of these things, and what I'm recognizing is that, you know, people that watch it, and all you people that have been watching the whole series, you're doing it because you're practicing borrowed hope. You're practicing borrowed hope. You're allowing yourself to receive hope because sometimes you don't feel it. Or maybe the places that you're going to, that you want to experience hope, that you're not getting it. You're not getting fed. You're not getting fed. You know? And I think that it's, you know, hope is such an important thing to experience. And when you're doing this work, it's non-negotiable. You need to be able to experience hope. And this is something that I try to do all the time. You know, whether it's in the group, whether it's on the financial therapy group that I do on the Thursdays, or whether it's in therapy or whatever, I always try to incorporate hope in doing this work. And it's not about spiritual bypassing or, you know, not acknowledging people that are having a difficult time, because people do expect this work is hard work. This work is hard work. Yes, Beverly. Beverly's saying, hope breeds hope. It does. I was one of my quotes that I talk about is that willingness seeds willingness. Willingness seeds willingness, and hope is the same thing. Hope also seeds hope. But sometimes you need to be around other people in order for you to internalize the hope of others. So Michelle's saying exactly right, June. It's vital that we have our community. It's so easy to feel defeated. Yeah, it does. A lot of us do feel defeated. And I think it's the reason why so many of us as a community, why we feel depressed. That's why we feel depressed. Because, you know, we've had to practice. We've got that thing about, you know, I sometimes talk about learned hopelessness. What the system wants us to do is to internalize a sense of hopelessness and powerlessness, because then it means that we're easily controlled. We then become sheep. And we kind of, you know, I was saying to somebody the other day about the whole concept of rock bottom. I talk about rock bottom a lot in recovery. You know, people hit rock bottom and then they decide, okay, I'm at the bottom now I need to go and do something in order for me to rise. I'll go to therapy, I'll do this, I'll do that, and it will help me to get me back on track. The issue with a lot of us in our community, when we live under systems of oppression, is that a rock bottom is not just something that we experience every now and then so that we can rise. A lot of us live on the rock bottom. Our existence for a lot of us is on rock bottom. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, and it's a hard thing to say, but that is the truth. A lot of us as black people live on the bottom. We survive on the bottom. We exist on the bottom. And we've never been anywhere else. A lot of us have never been anywhere else. And that's why so many of us as a community have been depressed. Are depressed. And that's when I know when you know, I still have moments where I get depressed. I still have moments when I get like that. But the difference is, I know that I need to get my ass to a meeting. I need to get my ass to a meeting. Because I need that connection. I need community. I need to be around people. Yes, Beverly's saying put under the system of heavy manners. No more I have hope. Exactly. The system does put it's, I think, do you know what it is? I don't actually think that people realise how debilitating it is to live inside these systems of oppression, because we're so used to being in survival mode. We don't know what anything else feels like. We don't know what it feels like to be hopeful. And a lot of us are scared to dream. We're scared to do anything else. We're scared to reclaim that part of that part of our humanity back, because we're scared that somebody's going to take it. Like I said, we're scared that the system is going to slap the hope out of our mouth, because that's what's happened in the past. That's what's happened in the past. Or maybe you wake up and you have a good day. I've had this happen to me. Actually, what it was, I had one of my days off that I had last week. I thought, you know what, I'm going to catch up and watch this. There's a movie that I wanted to watch on Netflix. I wasn't really that sure about what the movie was about, but I was feeling quite content. I'd had a really good night's sleep. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to chill. I'm going to watch this movie, you know, get some snacks or whatever. And I was ready to watch this. Within 20 minutes, I was devastated, because the film had this black couple in it. And the guy kept having these nightmares. The first nightmare that he had, he was being strangled by the police like George Floyd. Then he had another dream where he was being shot by. And I just thought, for God's sake, like, I couldn't even put a movie on. And enjoy this film without there being all of this stuff on it. It's like, you know, it's frustrating sometimes that we can't watch something about us that doesn't have a load of black trauma in it. Sometimes it's difficult. I've got a whole load of stuff saved in my Netflix, and sometimes I don't want to watch none of it. Sometimes I don't want to watch none of it, because a lot of times, I mean, yes, obviously it's good to be informed and all the rest of it, but sometimes for my own well-being, I just need to watch some trash. I just need to watch some trash, because if I'm constantly being fed all of this narrative in my head that there's always some black trauma going on, black people being murdered or being abused or whatever, it's too much. It gets too much. And I need to feel hopeful. There are times I need to put boundaries in about watching all of that stuff. That's why sometimes when there's stuff going on in the news and stuff going on in politics, I don't always talk about it. Not because I don't want to, but because sometimes my brain needs a break, and I don't always want to be talking about stuff on my platform that's always about trauma. Sometimes it's important for me to talk about hope. I want to talk about what's possible. I want to talk about solution-focused stuff so that people can really think about, actually, do you know what? I can do something about this. It's good to be informed, but it's also important to have boundaries and to try and make it balanced. Because if I can go looking for stuff every day and find horror stories about what's going on in our community under the system of racism, there's always stuff to look at. But there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. And in order to maintain hope, you have to have boundaries around what you're looking at. Think about what you're nurturing yourself with. Think about what programs you're watching, what music you're listening to, what people you're hanging around with, what books are you reading, what magazines are you looking at, what podcasts are you listening to. Is it always black trauma? Sometimes even that can be a trauma response. Always looking for trauma, because that hypervigilance, it's almost like when you can't get away from it, but you can't not look at it at the same time. That in of itself could be a trauma response. Because it's like a form of control. So Beverly's saying, my boundary TV is Gavin and Stacey. I used to like watching that. For me, my thing, I watch Love Island. It's just trash. There's no substance to it. Sometimes there's a load of foolishness that goes on there, but I just watch Love Island. It's good to have some trash TV that you can just watch. Find some good trash TV that you can watch to switch your mind off. I love watching things like what's the name of that cleaning woman that does stuff, Marie Kondo. I love Marie Kondo, and also I love things like Queer Eye as well. I love Queer Eye. I love that series because they're doing a lot of stuff. They're doing a lot of stuff there, and it's like sometimes they do like makeover stuff. Find your programs that you can watch that are going to give your brain and your nervous system a rest. When you're constantly looking at trauma and stuff all the time, your nervous system is not going to get a rest. And you need to find a way of being able to just be without having all of that stuff on top to deal with. Sometimes you just need a rest. Sometimes you just need a rest. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing this workshop. This art of receiving workshop, because I think a lot of us we're afraid to receive, because so many of us have got so much loss, so much fear of loss, stuff that we haven't grieved, that there is no space for us to receive anything, because we're holding on to so much stuff that's old. We're holding on to so much stuff emotionally that we can't let go of, so we find it hard to receive, and then we just get stuck in the cycle of chaos. We get stuck in the cycle of chaos. So it's so important to give yourself permission. So Michelle said, I look at Judy Love. I love Judy Love as well. And Gina Yashere. Go back and look at the what was it? I can't remember what was the title of there's a live stream that I did as part of this series. I think it's called The Shit That Gives Me Life or something like that. And I do talk about you know, the people on Instagram and whatever, people that I follow that make me laugh. You know, I like Mo Gilligan as well. Yeah, the black comedian as well. Gosh, some of the other programs that I like watching. But yeah, I love Judi Love. I love Jeannie Asheray. Yeah, find things that make you laugh. Find things that make you laugh. Find things that find hobbies that you're interested in. Find things that are creative. You know, find things that are creative, just to give you, again, it gives you a break. Go out in nature. Go out in nature. Be around your people. Go and paint, write, you know. And it's one of the things that I need to, something that I want to learn to stop doing actually is, like, a lot of the books that I read so many books. But a lot of the books that I read are quite often related to therapy. That's why I know so much stuff about different modalities and stuff, because I'm always reading. But I'd like to do some other, you know, read some other stuff, maybe some biographies and stuff like that about other people's lives, not necessarily about therapy and stuff. But I read a lot of books on, you know, trauma and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously because it's my work and stuff, and I love what I do, and I'm always kind of beavering around looking for the next thing. But that, you know, I like to add value, and I like to understand stuff myself. You know, but at the same time, I know that one of the things that is really important is to give myself permission to just read for pleasure. Read for pleasure. You know, get some really nice magazines. You know, get some really nice magazines and just like read for pleasure. You know, think about the things what you're doing at the moment in terms of, you know, again, what you're absorbing, and how can those things begin to really nurture you in a different way. You know, Beverly's saying water my plants and growing fresh herbs, watching grow, reading. Oh, I love that. And being out in nature. Oh, I love that. That is so simple, but so everything. Oh my God, so everything. You know, being out in nature is absolutely perfect. Being out in nature, you know, and just, even if you're just going out for a walk and stuff, just allowing yourself to get your vitamin D and whatever during the day, especially now in the UK, it's quite sunny and stuff here. So I try and get out every day, even if it's for 20 minutes, half an hour. Just go for a walk or whatever. You know, these are all things that are going to help you feel more positive, you know, but, you know, these are all things that I've been showing things that you can do on your own, but this thing about borrowed hope, yeah, find your community. Find a community that makes you feel nurtured, that makes you feel loved, that makes you feel seen, that allows you to have a voice. Find your community. Find your community, because that will be everything for you. And when you're having those moments when you feel down, okay, when you're having those moments where you feel down or you feel powerless, or you know, you've seen something on social media or on the news or whatever that's getting on your nerves, you just get back to your community and allow them to wrap their virtual arms around you. Hold each other's virtual hand. Hold each other's virtual hand, and then that's going to help you get through it. And as you grow, you know, your circle will also grow. And you need a different, you know, you're going to need a different set of nurturing as you grow and you change and you shed those layers. But you need to always find yourself in a space where there's hope. You know, forget about all of these circles where it's just gossip. You're not going to find hope where there's gossip, or people just complaining all the time. There's a difference between people that are just complaining and people that are processing. They're two very different things. Okay? There's a difference between a group of people that are just complaining and gossiping and people that are processing. People that are just complaining are not really interested. It's not solution focused. There's a difference. If the people are just complaining, they're just whining. There's no solution. There's no growth. They just want to talk about people. They want to talk about others, and also be wary. Oh, here's something that you need to be really clear about as well. Something that this is really important. Okay, when you're in these community groups, be wary of groups. Okay, that are just talking about white folk. Okay? Be wary of groups that are only talking about white folk. Because even though there is an element of that needs to be processed, you can't change how white people behave. You can understand how the system operates, but you can't change how white people behave. You need to understand your relationship to whiteness, and you need to understand how you're going to process your pain around living under the system of racism. Don't get trapped in thinking that because you're in this group and they're talking about white people this and white people that and all the rest of it, that's going to help you process. That ain't going to help you process, because you can't change how white people behave. You need to be in a group that is talking about, that's going to help you understand the system, okay? But it's going to help you understand what you've internalized. Your power is not through talking about what white people do. Your power is helping you understand how you respond to it, and what you need, and how you've internalized it, and what we're doing to each other as a community. Be very mindful of that, because I've seen that happen. People think that just talking about, and don't get me wrong, like I said, that is part of it, because you need to process your experiences around whiteness. That's one part of it. But you also, if you're not talking about what's been internalized, okay, or what black people are doing to each other as a result of what they've internalized, that's a red flag. You ain't gonna learn nothing in that group. You ain't gonna learn nothing in that group if you're just talking about white folk, because you can't change them. They've got one. That's their business. Okay, you notice that I don't really come on here and talk about white people per se. I talk about what we're doing to each other and what you're doing to yourself. That's the work. Okay? So Beverly saying, yes, it's too toxic and none of those members have solutions, not good for my growth, or dirty pain. Exactly, it's draining. It is draining. So you need to really, really stay focused on what you're doing for yourself, and how that group is going to nurture you in terms of is it solution focused, or are they just talking about racism? It needs to be solution focused. This is one of the things that is so important for me. You know, when I you can notice when I go on there and do these live streams, I always talk about solutions. I always talk about solutions. I talk about a lot of stuff that people don't always talk about, and I talk about solutions, because you got to have tools. You need tools, because otherwise I'm not giving you any hope. I'm just regurgitating stuff that's going to make you feel more powerless. If I'm always talking about what white people did this and white people did that, how is that going to help you? It's not going to help you, is it? You need to understand the system, and you need to understand how you've internalized the system, and then what you're going to do about it. That's the work. That's what I believe is my responsibility, is to help you understand what you've internalized, how it's impacted your life, and how you can do something about it. That's the work. That's how your life is going to change, by using the tools. But first, you've got to understand, and this is how the borrowed hope situation is tied into all of this. And maybe because the reason why people find themselves in these toxic cycles of gossiping or just talking about white folk is because they don't have any hope. They don't have any hope. So the only thing left is to bitch about white people. Is to complain about white people. And yes, the system is toxic. Racism is toxic. Oppression is toxic. And when you're in pain about something and you can't change it, you feel powerless over it, of course you're going to feel compelled to talk about it because you're in pain about it. That makes complete sense. Listen. It makes complete sense that you're going to want to talk about it because you're in pain. But it's not going to change anything. Your life is not going to change by just talking about it. You need to be able to process it. So Beverly's saying you're on fire tonight, June. Have you been? Do you know what? I did have my sea moss today, funnily enough. I love my sea moss. Yeah, I have had my sea moss today, fair enough. Yeah, I love my sea moss. But yeah, I just like... I'm very passionate about this stuff. And I was thinking about what I should do for the last live stream, because tomorrow I'm going to be talking about reflections about what I've learned over the last 30 days. But I just thought, what should I talk about today? And I just went within, and I was going to talk about something else, but then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to talk about that. I just asked my ancestors, what do you want me to talk about? And what came back is borrowed hope. And because I would say, with all the other things that I've done, the borrowed hope is what's kept me going back. When things get really, really rubbish, when things have got terrible, it's the community. It's the community that's kept me alive, that's kept me going. That's the thing that's kept me going. And here's something that always kept me coming back into recovery as well. And at the time I used to get quite annoyed by it, but actually I'm so grateful for it now. Those times where I just thought, oh, do you know what, I can't do this recovery stuff anymore, it's getting on my nerves, I don't want to go with scare therapy anymore, it's getting on my nerves. When I just felt like I was in so much pain, I don't want to do this anymore, I would just be like, sometimes I would just stop doing my outreach calls, I would stop phoning people in recovery, I would stop going to meetings. I had those moments where I just thought, I don't want to do this no more. But because I allowed myself to be in spaces that had borrowed hope, and I was in community with people that also had borrowed hope, and had given my phone number to people that were also doing this work, even though I stopped going to meetings, and if I had moments where I stopped going to meetings or stopped calling people, people would phone me, and they would leave messages, and they would leave voice notes. So when I was feeling like rubbish, I thought, oh, let me just listen to this message. Oh, let me just listen to that voice note. And in doing that, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll just go to another meeting. Or maybe they would say something. That would inject a little bit more hope. They would say something in the message that was like, oh, maybe I'll go to that meeting. They would say something in their sharing that, oh, maybe I'll try that tool that they used. So it's like my higher power was like, you ain't leaving this game. My higher power was like, you are not leaving this game. You need to get your backside to a meeting, or you need to call your sponsor, or you need to do another step question, or you need to show up at therapy, or you need to call your sponsee. I had there were people that were depending on me. And there were people that were sharing their stories and stuff with me in voicemail, in voice notes and whatever. And so it was hard for me to leave. It was hard for me to leave the process because there were other people that were pulling me back in to recovery. And that saved my life. That stuff saved my life. Because every time I got fed up, somebody would call me. Or somebody would leave a voice note or something to remind me of what I should be doing. And I think that stuff is my ancestors. I think that stuff is my higher power. I think all of that stuff is the universe saying to me, you ain't leaving this game. Get your ass to a meeting. Get back on the path. That's what happens when you start borrowing hope. Because when I ain't got none, I can show up at a meeting, and even when I don't show up at a meeting, my higher power is going to send me somebody to remind me that I need to keep going. So I'm sharing this message with you because I want you to remember that when you're having a rubbish time, when things feel shit, when you feel like you can't go on, when you feel like you can't go to, when you feel like things just feel really in the toilet, This is your message. This is your virtual, what do I want to call this? This is your virtual hug. Okay? This is your virtual message. This is your virtual spoonful of juice. Reminding you that you're not on your own. Reminding you that there are people out here that identify. Reminding you that you have got work to do. Reminding you that there are people that are depending on you. Reminding you that our youth need us. They need to see us doing the work. Reminding you, if you've got children, that your children are looking at you. Reminding you that you have a community that is depending on you. You have a community that is depending on you. And as black women, listen, I'm going to say something right now, and it, you know, it kind of vexes me to say it, but it's the truth. Okay, I'm going to say something in a minute that might upset you as a black woman, but this is the truth. Okay, even though we are on the bottom of the ladder, okay, we're one of the most marginalized, oppressed groups. Okay, I actually firmly believe that it's us that's going to get us out of this nonsense, because black women get shit done. That's it. That's the bottom line. Like, we get things done. We're the ones that get things done. And when I think about the resilience, and you know, we don't always want to be the resilient one. We don't always want to be the strong black woman. I get all of that. But when push comes to shove, when it comes down to it, the black women are we're the ones that get shit done. So when I get in that space where I feel like, do you know what? And it's not about overriding how you feel. It's not about spiritual bypassing your pain or none of that. This message is reminding you that you need to go and lie down. You need to go and drink your water. Okay? You need to take your sea moss. Beverly, take your sea moss. Take your vitamins. Go and lie down. So that when you are doing your work, that you are present and ready to stand up in that work. So it's not about overworking. It's not about abandoning yourself. It's about balance. It's about allowing yourself to be in the community so that you can receive, and so that people will go and tell you, excuse me, go and lie down. Excuse me, you need to go and eat. Find yourself in communities that are going to pull you up when you're not taking care of yourself. I have people in my circle now that will pull me up when I'm not looking after myself. Because I want to be in this game for the long haul. I'm not in this game just for 5 minutes, and I'm aware that if I don't look after myself, I'm going to burn out. I don't want to be that person that burns out. I want to be here for the long game. You know, and yeah, Beverly's also saying rest is also our resistance. Absolutely. Rest is also our resistance. And for me, rest is not just about going to bed on time. It's also about, like I was saying earlier, about being mindful about what programs you're watching, what podcasts you're listening to, all of that kind of stuff, and giving myself permission to go and watch some trash TV. To give myself a break. Rest is also about, you know, giving your brain permission to rest, giving your body, it's about physical rest, it's about emotional rest, it's about going out in nature, it's about being around other people. Sometimes it's about not doing any of this healing work. Sometimes it's about letting yourself not do any healing work. So sometimes I just clear the whole schedule. I clear my whole day. I'm not doing any meetings. I'm not doing any therapy. I'm not reading no books. And I just go, what do I want to do today? Don't want to do nothing. All right. So I'll just go and get some snacks, and I'll just do whatever I feel. Sometimes I'll sleep. Sometimes I'll get in the bath and have a nice Epsom salt bath and rest. Sometimes I'll go for a walk. Sometimes I'll go to hot yoga. Sometimes it's about not doing anything. And that's also important. That's also about hope. When you rest, the reason why a lot of us can't rest is because we don't have any hope. Because we think that if we stop, that everything's going to collapse. If we stop. If we give ourselves permission to rest, what we're telling the universe is that we have hope that things are going to be okay if we rest. But the system will have you twisted in knots. Like, if you're not always busy and being productive and always hustling and all this stuff and don't sleep and all that sort of nonsense, that your world is going to fall apart. When actually the opposite is true. The system will have you grinding and hustling because it wants you to make money for them. The system will have you doing that. Grinding and hustling because it wants you to think that you are a mule. And you're not a mule. But we've internalized that. So that's how we behave, and we think that we can't stop because we think that something is going to happen to us if we stop. We're so used to hustling and grinding, that sense of urgency, again, I think that's a trauma response. It's a trauma response. And we don't know how to stop. Receiving, giving yourself permission to receive, is also about giving yourself permission to receive rest. It's not just about receiving money or receiving compliments and all of that sort of stuff. And receiving is also about you making a decision. Do you know what? I'm going to give myself permission to lie down. Receiving is not just about what you allow others to give to you. It's about what you're willing to give to yourself. Receiving is not just about what you're willing to accept externally, but also about what you are willing to give to yourself, because that's where it starts. If you find it difficult to give to yourself, you're not going to be able to receive from any external sources, because it starts from how you treat yourself. You've got to give yourself permission to receive space so you can rest. You've got to give yourself permission to receive food that's nourishing. You've got to give yourself permission to set those boundaries around, I'm not watching this black trauma on social media. I'm not doing it. I'm not watching the videos. I'm not watching videos of my people being murdered and all. I'm not doing it. Up until this day, I still have not watched that video of George Floyd. I've made the conscious decision, I am not watching that video, because I'm not watching my people being murdered. I don't need to watch it to know that it happened. And I know what it's going to do to my brain if I watch it. It doesn't mean I don't care about the brother. Of course I care. But I don't need to subject my brain to that sort of trauma. I'm making a conscious decision that I'm not going to subject myself to that sort of trauma. You know why? Because I'm not going to be able to serve my community if I keep looking at every single video of our people getting abused. How am I going to serve my community if I've got all that going on, that trauma? I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm also a parent. And I want to be able to parent from a place of being present, not from a place of being traumatized or disassociated because I've watched somebody be murdered on social media. I'm not going to do it. So Michelle said, I haven't watched it either. I have no desire to say. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I don't need to see it. And I think these are the types of disciplines that we need to start putting in place. You know, that we need to start putting those things in place so that we can maintain our sense of self. These are the types of things that help, that erode our, what's the word I'm looking for there? That erode our sense of hope. Because we feel powerless. We feel powerless over the way that the police treat us. We feel powerless over the government. We know that they treat us like shit. We know that. We know that. But when we understand that that's how we're being treated, and then to actually see the trauma, watch the trauma as well, that's something else. So you've got to protect your mind. You've got to protect yourself. This is what it means to look after yourself. If you want to have hope for the future, you've got to put these things in place so that you can preserve that hope. Yes, you can come together as a community. Yes, you can do the communal grief or individual grief around these things. But it's going to be a lot easier for you to be. I mean, it's never easy, but the grief is going to be a lot much more. What's the word I'm looking for? You can do the grief without that added layer of actually having that picture in your brain. It's still traumatic knowing that somebody's been murdered, even if you don't watch it. But when you watch it as well, it gives you that added, you've got all the visuals and stuff, and you just don't need that in your brain. You don't need that in your brain. Okay? So what I want to leave you with is this whole idea of you have permission. You have permission to dream. Find a way, okay? Find a space to reclaim your ability to dream. Find a space that you can borrow hope from. Find a space where you can borrow hope from when you don't feel it, and when you're not in the mood, when you're tired, when you just feel powerless, when you're fed up and all of that. You can find a space where you can drink. Find a space where you can drink some hope. Find a space where you can borrow some hope. Because at a certain amount of time, if you find a space where you can borrow hope, it will eventually, you'll internalize it. And you'll start to believe it yourself, and you'll start to make different choices. When you start to internalize it, you can start to make different choices. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean you're not going to have moments again when you feel powerless. I still feel like that sometimes, but I know what to do next time. When I feel like that, I know what to do. I get myself into the spaces where I know I'm going to be nurtured. And that's the point. It's not allowing yourself to just be dragged down by what the system is doing to us, and not giving in to that learned helplessness that a lot of us have. And giving yourself permission to not live your life at rock bottom. Not giving yourself permission to break through from rock bottom. So somebody's saying, how do you break through the freeze response? Oh, that's a whole nother live stream. How do you get through I might have to do it as a separate live stream. But the freeze response, again, first of all, you start with self-care. It depends on what the freeze response was from as well. If it's whether it's something that's been directly happened to you, if it's whether it's something that's happened to someone else that you've witnessed. There's a lot of different things, ways that I would deal with that. But yeah, the freeze response requires grounding. There are different ways that you can ground yourself. There are different ways that you can ground yourself. But you can, if you experience the freeze response is something that you experience quite a lot. If you what you can do, and this is something that I've been saying to my other clients and stuff as well. If you read, if you heard of Reshma Menaken's book, Somatic Abolitionism, which is he's written a book called My Grandmother's Hands. If you go onto YouTube, okay, and read it and listen to a lot of his podcasts, he talks a lot about the freeze response. You can do. I'll give you one quick technique that you can do that I teach my clients. Okay, so quite often, if you're in your freeze response, you're shut down for whatever reason. Now, depending on the situation, I would automatically just find yourself in a space that feels safe. So if you're at home, okay, great, and you can do this butterfly. If you put one hand under your arm, okay, and put the other one on the top, and then give yourself permission, you can just gently tap You can just gently tap, or you can put your hands at the top there. It's called the butterfly hug. Okay, so you can look at Reshma's stuff, and the thing that I'm teaching you now is just to help you to get grounded. Okay, putting your feet flat on the floor. You can do breath work. Yeah, it's about finding things that you can do that feel safe. Things that feel safe for you. You know, you can orient as well. Just kind of look around the room, and just kind of get present to what's going on for you. Like, I don't know, if you got like a blanket or something like that that's fluffy, you can, you know, put the blanket on you and just kind of, so you're doing things that are kind of grounding you. Because what happens is when you're in the freeze response, you might be disassociated. You might be disassociated, which means you're kind of zoned out a bit. So maybe and what that is your brain is just trying to protect you from whatever it is that's triggered you into that freeze response. I don't know if any of this is making sense. You might have your brain is you're trying to protect yourself from the thing that's happened. It's your way of trying to protect yourself. So, you know, a way that you do that is you can ground yourself. So you know, just gently rubbing your arms, doing the butterfly hug. Yeah, those are just a few things off the top of my head that I can think of that you can do when you're in the freeze response. Going outside actually is a really good one. Going out in nature is a really good one. Walk bare feet. That's another one. They're all coming to me now. Walk bare feet on the grass outside in nature. That's a really good one. You know, having an Epsom salt bath. Talk to someone. Quite often, if I've been in spaces like that, if I've had moments when if I'm talking to someone, if I'm in therapy and I'm talking about an issue that I don't really want to talk about, and I might go into the freeze response, or I might disassociate because my brain is trying to protect me from the pain about that experience. Okay, what I do is I will actually talk about it. Right, so you struggle with the freeze response a lot. Okay, so yeah, I mean, those obviously, without knowing your situation, I don't want to give, you know, because obviously I don't want to give you tools that might make it worse without actually knowing your situation, because obviously, you know, this is a live stream and I'm not a therapy session, so I don't want to give you any tools or whatever that might make your situation worse. So it depends. It really does depend on the situation. I mean, I've given you a few little tools, but I mean, I don't know if you're in therapy at the moment. Yeah, if you're not in therapy at the moment, you know, I do have spaces if you're looking for a therapist. You know, maybe send me a message or whatever afterwards and let me know. Yeah, there's so many different reasons why the freeze response happens, and if you're happening a lot, I'm imagining that there's stuff there that that you need to look at. But yeah, I mean, I've given you a little bit of tools there. If you do need more support or whatever, and anyone else is listening to this live stream that's having the same sort of issues, yeah, then click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Okay, well, you already do a few of them, which is great. But yeah, just if you message me, then obviously I can, you know, I can be a bit more specific. So let's see. So Michelle, what time are you on tomorrow? So we can say. So I'm just trying to think what time I've got. Maybe I'll do a morning one. I think actually it's Sunday tomorrow. Should we say? Let me just have a look. Hang on. Let me just double check what I'm doing tomorrow. I don't want to do it too early because it's the crack of dawn and it's friggin' Sunday, innit? But at the same time, I might do one maybe about 11 o'clock, I would say. Let me just make sure I ain't got any other meetings or anything in the morning. Sunday the 9th. Yeah, maybe I'll do about 11 o'clock. How about 11 o'clock tomorrow? I'll do 11 o'clock tomorrow, and then we can have a proper chat tomorrow about what I've learned, and, you know, you can tell me what you've learned as well from the live streams, and then I'll talk to you about you know, what I'm going to do going forward. But I'm definitely going to continue. I've learned so much from doing these live streams, and it's been really good for just kind of building relationship and stuff like that as well. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today, but thank you so much for joining me. I hope today has been, you know, the session today has been useful. So yeah, Borrowed Hope, man. Borrowed Hope is the one. If you're up and down and you're struggling, Borrowed Hope is the one. If you would like to join me on the 15th of July for my Art of Receiving half-day retreat, there I'm doing 2-for-1 tickets as well, just this weekend only. So click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. If you've got any other questions or anything else that you'd like me to talk about, and maybe the one about the freeze response, maybe something that I could talk about. I can maybe talk a little bit more about that in a bit more detail. Then then please keep your questions coming in, because I'm going to continue doing this. Not obviously every single day, but I'm going to be doing more than one a week for sure. So I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But you're so welcome, and just like, if you know anyone that you think might find this live stream useful, please share it with them, tag them. Email me info@yardofgreatness.com if you've got any other questions, or you're looking for a therapist or whatever. Then please do that. All right, so enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye.